We are now over a month deep into the biggest waste of New York taxpayer dollars I've ever seen. President Trump's statement of financial condition was so undervalued. But Letitia James, as you've seen, will show up when it's a press day. I said it yesterday on the news. She hasn't been here for days, but you know when she's going to come? When the main event's here, and that is Trump. She piggybacked on Trump to get into office. She didn't do it well enough to be a governor. She was a failed gubernatorial candidate. And now she's working on her politics again. She shows up, sits in the back when she should be doing real work because the city of New York has fallen apart. If you are a business in New York, pay attention. You put your value. If President Trump wanted to inflate his net worth on a statement of financial condition, his brand alone could double, triple it. It's basic. It's basic. This is a waste of time. We heard testimony from an expert this week. Ms. James wasn't here for that day because it wasn't good for her. He's been paid by New York taxpayer dollars $450,000 in the past few months to come here and testify. That's your money. That's not my money. It is a crime. And now these children are being brought in away from their families for doing nothing wrong. It's a great company. It has always been a great company. It's worth a lot more than the statements say, and she just doesn't like it. And now her politics don't allow her to back off or back down. And it's unfortunate. But this case should be done. We are wasting our time. Thank you.
Okay, so first of all, I want to make sure I heard one line in particular correctly. Quote, "These children were brought in away from their families for doing nothing wrong." I heard that and I'm thinking to myself, what children? And then I realized that Alina Habba, Donald Trump's attorney, is referring to Don Jr., Ivanka, and Eric Trump, who are 45, 42, and 39 years old, respectively. Well, look, I know court can be a very traumatic situation for those kiddos, but hopefully they all got some extra screen time on the iPad, an hour or two of Dora, and they should be just fine. After all, kids can be very resilient. Now that we're done discussing the children, let's touch on some of the points that Alina Habba made, starting with this.
We are now over a month deep into the biggest waste of New York taxpayer dollars I've ever seen.
Tell you what, I find it so ironic that suddenly Alina Habba is worried about wasting New York taxpayer dollars when the whole point of this case is that Donald Trump and his adult children engaged in financial fraud by offering up different property values to lenders and tax officials. By undervaluing his properties when it came to taxes, that means he didn't pay what he should have been paying. So if Alina Habba is truly worried about protecting taxpayer dollars, she might want to take that up with the people she is quite literally representing, because the only ones who defrauded the people of New York are the people paying her salary. But the glaring lack of self-awareness doesn't stop there, because Habba then goes on to say this.
But Letitia James, as you've seen, will show up when it's a press day. I said it yesterday on the news. She hasn't been here for days, but you know when she's going to come? When the main event's here, and that is Trump. She piggybacked on Trump.
That Letitia James only shows up for the press. I'm sorry, but does Alina Habba know who she represents? She's complaining about James showing up in court when she is representing Donald Trump, the guy who shows up for the express sole purpose of spewing out a stream of lies and obfuscations about the facts of this case for the cameras. Alina Habba may not be great at lawyering, but she is a total pro when it comes to projection. But hey, might as well go for the trifecta when it comes to Habba's lack of self-awareness.
She didn't do it well enough to be a governor. She was a failed gubernatorial candidate. And now she's working on her politics again.
If you were looking for the death of irony, it is the attorney for Donald Trump criticizing someone else for being a failed candidate and using a trial as a way to advance their politics. Has she met her client? The guy who is a failed presidential candidate and has now predicated his entire identity on trying to convince his marks that he somehow didn't lose an election that he lost? If Habba was capable of shame, I'd imagine this might actually cause some embarrassment for her. And finally, there's this.
We heard testimony from an expert this week. Ms. James wasn't here for that day because it wasn't good for her. He's been paid by New York taxpayer dollars $450,000 in the past few months to come here and testify. That's your money. That's not my money. It is a crime.
Right. The crime is that the city has to pay its experts to testify. That's the crime. Tell you what, if the Trump team was worried about court costs, they might have considered, I don't know, not engaging in rampant years-long fraud, because it turns out that when you don't break the law, the court costs are actually zero. So no, the crime is not paying experts to testify, the crime is quite literally the crime. Now, just to go back to this idea of Donald Trump's adult children being referred to as helpless kids, I discussed with my Legal Breakdown co-host Glenn Kirshner the thinly veiled threat against the judge in this case, Judge Engoron, issued by Donald Trump, and whether it violates his gag order. I want to focus on one post in particular where he wrote, quote, "Leave my children alone, Engoron." He also wrote, "You're a disgrace to the legal profession." That one felt different from the others. So first, is this a violation of Trump's gag order? And second of all, does it pose any problems for Trump?
You know, Judge Engoron issued a gag order that prevents Trump from talking about, posting about the court's staff. And I think the way that's been interpreted as Donald Trump is free to say whatever he wants about the judge, as long as it's not sort of a directly threatening communication that would actually violate New York state law. But you're right, Brian, this one feels different. Now, it's not different in that I think it violates the gag order. But when you say, "Leave my kids alone," Engoron, it is so plainly sort of channeling mob talk that it feels different. You know, it may not feel different in a legally significant way, but I think that probably caught the judge's attention. And I think it may make him sort of less forgiving in the future if there are additional posts that come close to the line that Judge Engoron has drawn for Trump, that, you know, a tie is not going to go to the runner in the future. I just, you know, it's funny because as a former career prosecutor who dealt with lots of people who were forever making threats, this one felt different to me. It hit my ear differently because it is so clearly mob speak. You don't threaten a judicial officer to, quote, "leave the witnesses, my kids, alone." So I think we have to stay tuned to see if Judge Engoron takes it up in open court, if he does what he says about it, and whether he actually ratchets up the gag order, maybe broadens it, makes it more inclusive. But I'll tell you, I think Donald Trump is pressing his luck with Judge Engoron. I also think all of this is not being missed by Judge Tanya Chutkan, who imposed a far broader gag order in Donald Trump's D.C. case. So I continue to maintain, Brian, as we've discussed before, Donald Trump is inching himself closer and closer to being put in a jail cell pending trial.
It's always so funny, too, how when Trump wants to try to curry favor for his children, he always presents them as if they're like 9-year-olds. These are 40-something-year-old like fraudsters, right? Like these are full-grown adults. But obviously, when he wants to curry favor for them, suddenly they're completely infantilized, and they need their dad to come and protect them on Truth Social.
And fraudster is not just our characterization, because Judge Engoron already found that they were involved in long-term systemic fraud.
Right.
And, you know, now it's just all about how much they're going to have to pay back to the New York citizens.
Yeah. So between Trump and his legal team, they will continue opening their mouths and inserting their foots because the truth is that they have no valid defense here. Donald Trump and his family are criminals, and so to distract from their criminality, they do what they always have done, which is to project. But you know what they say, if the facts are on your side, pound the facts. If the law is on your side, pound the law. If neither the facts nor the law are on your side, pound the table. That might help explain why the Trump team is busy making so much noise. Before you go, I need some help. Please subscribe to the channel and do your part to help grow the progressive media ecosystem. I don't do sponsorships or paid ads, I won't ask for money, but just subscribing to this channel goes a really long way, and it helps get the message out to more people. The subscribe button is right here on the screen. You can also subscribe to my Spanish language channel, which I made to reach those crucial Spanish-speaking voters. That link is on the screen too. And finally, if you want to listen to my audio podcast, you can follow that link as well. Thanks so much for watching.